Okay. Hello, and welcome to this chat, where I will be applying some new thermal paste to this GPU. It's a customer's GPU. He buys old cards, and he pays me to do that for him often. So yeah, what I use is this from Intel XT, and in my opinion, it's fine. So I'm going to show you how I do this. I use my iFixit ProTech toolkit to do it. And I also have normal screwdrivers lying around if I need to. I just dropped my screwdriver. Cool. Pro streamer right there. I apologize if the quality is ass, but it should be fine. It's the one we also use for the BBU live podcast. It's just my normal webcam. So yeah, just remove these, and they are spring loaded, so you just remove them a bit until the spring goes out. That. And you take them, and for a parts tray I use this, where I can just put them so I know where they go. And I would recommend, if you've never done this before, that you either don't do this or that you ask a guy that knows how to do it, because you can seriously break your shit. But yeah, if you don't know how to do it, then watch a video on how to do it. Don't just dive in. It's not that it's hard to do at all. It really isn't. It's just a lot of risk if you don't know what you're doing. And as I said, there's a million ways of doing this, like with any other piece of technology. So my way isn't necessarily like the only way to do it. And I have never done it on this particular card before, so it's also, for me, it's going to be a bit of, hey, trial and error. But yeah, I can see where's the backplate is screwed in some places, so I'm gonna look there. I think I need to take off the shroud here. And just, as you see here, I only touch by the cooler and by the backplate. I don't actually touch any of the PCB components yet. So, yeah. Feel free to type in the chat if there's any questions, or DM me on the Discord server. You can join our server in the link in the video description if you're watching the VOD. And that thing should go over there, so I know they're the same. But yeah, if it's your first time doing it, I'll also recommend taking a lot of pictures. Because I've done it with other GPUs, so I have a rough idea of how stuff goes together. I can probably do it again. But if you've never ever done it before, I recommend taking a lot of pictures so you know kind of how stuff goes together when you need to put it back together. So do that instead of, just take it out. I'll also recommend, when you're doing it on a GPU die, you should use some non-conductive thermal paste. Non-conductive basically just means that it's energy or power can't flow through it, which is just super nice. How's this attached? I don't want to get that off. I hope this shroud will just come off on these. I think it's an old 500 series card from ASUS, and it was. Apparently it was stuck on there a lot. So cool. Okay, this one is just a matter of the right amount of force to remove it with those 4 screws. Yeah. If you wanted to water cool it, then this is the card you water cool. And this is the actual GPU die. And out here is all the memory chips. And there's a reason I don't touch the PCB, I touch these. So that's all the memory chips. Over here is part of the VRM and the power delivery, where it gets power here. this is what's called the shunt resistors. That's what you short if you really want to be a baller overclocker. And on the cooler here is, these are called heat pipes, these copper ones. And this is the fins, and that's where the card gets some nice cool air. And it looks like this actually wasn't covered, probably by whoever did this before me, or last time. So, this is not an NVIDIA job, I can see. Mostly because they would do it probably. Or ASUS for that matter. You can also take this back plate off here if you remove these screws, but I don't need to. Because I don't need to make it smaller or bigger card. It will always be like a 3 slot. 2.7 or 3 slot, I'm not sure, I haven't plugged it in. I take his words for that it works. So yeah, 1 sec. And I would recommend just using some toilet paper that I have lying around to remove it, and some isopropyl alcohol as well. And I know in Denmark I can buy it in a store called Matas. So, but isopropyl alcohol, just make sure that it's 99% alcohol, then there's nothing in it, and it is safe to use on any hardware to clean stuff or to just do whatever you do with your hardware. I used to theoretically you can also use vodka, and I've done that before, but I will never recommend you doing that. I recommend you use isopropyl alcohol. So yeah, what you do is you put some on like I just did, and then just round in circles. Little horny circles, and then it should just come off. Then it comes on here. Then you say, that's ugly. Throw it in the trash. You take a new piece of toilet paper, and you do it again. And make sure that you get it all removed. Now this is not conductive, as I said before, so nothing bad will actually happen from it sitting there. It can't short anything out or anything like that. It's just not a good idea to have it sitting there all the time. So I'd recommend not doing that. You can, if you want, and I will do that and demonstrate it. Take one of these, it's in the toolkit, and I'll use that. As you maybe can see here, there's a bit of thermal paste there, and I'll just scrape that off. I'm using a plastic tool and not a metal one, because a plastic tool will not destroy the glass fibers that's in this PCB, but a metal tool can. So a plastic one won't, and it won't damage the card. So use plastic and don't use metal. Of course you can use a metal screwdriver, as you saw me doing. Oh, there's a bit there. And just inspect the card all the time, so you're sure there's nothing on it. And now we can see what GPU this is. And as I said, I think it's a 500 and something. It is a, and I'm angling it so I can see it now. It's a GeForce 110. As you can maybe see if I can get the camera to focus. I don't know. Okay, don't want to focus. It says GeForce 110, which is stands for GeForce Thermi. Was the architecture that was the one before Kepler. Kepler was the 600 and the 700 series, and Pascal was the 900, and Turing is now the 20 series. So, and Maxwell was before that the 900 series. That was mother disgusting. Yeah. So it's a 510, so that must be a 570, I think. Yeah, if my memory serves me correct, that's a 570. So a mid-low range card from the Fermi era. So not a bad card back then. Right now it's like a, I don't know, not a 1030, but maybe somewhere in that ballpark. And you can see it's the same process on the cooler. Just remove all the thermal goop, thermal paste, thermal interface material, TIM, if you want. That's, I don't know if you watch a lot of Gamers Nexus, you probably use that word. I use thermal paste because that's what my mother taught me that it was called, so that's what I call it. You are free to use any name that you want. Here I'm not afraid of any, like, I can't short anything here. There's never going to be power flowing through here. If power connects to this, then you have a bad card, and that's bad. So don't do that. Don't ever get power. There's the only thing where there's power, that's this wire, which is for the fans. And that plugs right in there. And I know you saw me just rip it apart. And people are like, it will break. Like, how do it don't break that easily? Don't just rip it apart like I did. That was kind of a, oh, I've never done this card before, so I don't know how this actually goes. But if you know what you do and you don't just rip it with the force of 1,000 burning suns or something like that, it's fine. It'll be fine. There's nothing there. And you just clean it out like a so it will be nice and clean where you will put the new. What it does, the thermal paste, is it will put a layer in between, so all the imperfections in the copper and in the die will be filled with thermal paste, which has a greater thermal conductivity than air. Because air actually sucks of transferring heat compared to this. Metal is really good at it. Some metal is, like aluminum and copper. Copper is really, really good at it. Which is why these are made of copper. And these are made of, you can see, aluminum. And on some cards, they are made of copper as well. Copper is also a lot heavier. So that will give a lot more GPU sag. GPU sag is, if you look at an old lady naked, you know what sag is. And I'll just clean this one over here as well. Last time. Make sure that it's clean. So don't touch any of these with your fingers, because you will get finger oil on them. Finger oil is bad. When you finger oil on them, they won't transfer heat that much. And with the GPU and the CPU, there is, with the CPU, if you don't get it on, and you don't get enough on, it's not the end of the world. If you don't do that with a CPU, it's really bad. Like or a GPU, sorry, it's really bad, because every corner of this that's not covered at all will basically not transfer heat to the heatsink, and if it doesn't do that, then it will overheat, and not saying it's just gonna die straight up, but it could potentially die a lot. So, and like everything else, there's a bajillion ways of doing this. I would argue that my way of doing it is good enough, and that is just doing that, and then I drop there. That is usually the amount I put on a GPU. And then I just suck this thing back in, just like that. So then it just doesn't sit in the tip. Put this back on so it doesn't dry out. Some say this is not enough. I'm like, I've never killed a card with this. You can always put more on. If you put more on, you're safe. If you ever buy an EK block, it will tell you to do a cross and then a star. And I've never done that when I water cool. I don't water cool that much, but when I do. And I've actually said I've never killed a card with it, so it's fine. And I'll put the connector back on first, as you sit down there, and then I'll flip the thing, flip it over. I'll still not touch any of the PCBs. The PCB is a printed circuit board, which is what the GPU is. Then I will try to align these best I can, like that, and like this. Put it gently down. Then I will remove my keyboard so it can actually do this. Take this, and I'll take my screwdriver again. Start in, let's say, this corner. It doesn't really matter what corner you start in. Screw it in, and until it like gets there, then I stop. Like, you don't need to tighten it now at all, because you need to make sure that this hole can fit and that you can still move it a bit. And I do it diagonally because then you don't over tighten it in one corner or one place. Do the same when you install the CPU, cooler, or anything else. When you install SSDs and trays as well, you also do that. So it is important that you do that, and it's the same whenever you change a tire in a car. You do it diagonally. You don't just screw in, and it's just to make sure that it's on there. And now I will go in and I will make sure that they're tighter. They don't need to be really tight, but like the pressure of this is what keeps will make the thermal paste like spread out. So if you don't do it tight enough, it won't spread out, which again is bad. I put in these screws that I actually didn't need to remove these, sorry. So I would maybe not advise you to do so if you don't need to, but sometimes you need to remove these. You don't know, because every GPU is different, and this, as I said, is a very old GPU because that's what I have lying around that needed to be fixed, and he wanted me to fix it, so I did that. So I'll just do that. And just remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. And a screwdriver is cool. Oops. And you need to have a fancy tool set with all a million bits like I do to do this. A normal Phillips head was all I needed. It's more for special parts that it is nice to have more dedicated screwdrivers to do this. I will just look here, and yeah, if you really want to know, these are the power plugs where you put them in, plug it in, as I said before. And I can see in here that the thermal paste have spread out, which is what you want. You want it to spread out. And he wanted me to take a look inside the fans as well, and I need a different bit for that. I need this bit, I think, to see if they were stuck on, because he said that the owner before him removed them. So he wanted me to make sure that they were in there correctly, which I think they are, but instead of like checking them by untightening them or just tighten them, I will untie and then look if they are aligned properly, and then I will put them back in. And this is almost the same on every cooler. There's 3 screws holding these in, as you can maybe see there. There's a screw there, and there's screws all around. Or all around there's 3 screws. I'll screw it in and hold it in place. And it will be the same on most fans. That is 3. Sometimes it's 4, but a lot of the time it's 3. Just make sure you know how many it is, so that when you put them back in, you have the right amount of screws. It's a really important thing to have. And they should be able to be lifted up, and they are. And I can, if you want to take them out, you have to just do it at an angle, but I don't need to do that now. I need to make sure that they're in, and maybe I need to remove the shroud if I really want to take them out. I don't know. Don't know, but I don't need to, so I'm not gonna do that. And I think they're lined up fine. Like, it is possible to misalign fans even though they have 3 screws, but it really shouldn't be possible. And you do that. Ew. Something on my screwdriver. So you should be able to do this. Yeah. And yeah, like that. And this is here where a magnetic screwdriver is a big help, because you can do this without a screw, and you can't see shit, and you can do this without the screw falling off, which is really nice and handy. You do this. Ooh. Yeah, okay. And the fan shouldn't wiggle at all, because it is rotating with X amount of RPM. I don't know what these fans' RPM is, but rotations is really good at killing stuff. So make sure they're inside. I don't mean overtightening, and you should never use any power tools on any of your components ever. Like, I don't care who you are, you should never do that ever. If you feel like you need to use power tools to get something in, then you fucked up and you used the wrong something. So I'll just check if I touched it, and it did. A lot of the times on newer cards there will be here as well, where there's screws, or these backplate screws come in from this side. Often do on water plug backplates from EK. And just make sure when you touch, you don't touch any of these gold fingers. And yeah, the long one here is the data, and the small one here is for power. Power is only about 75 watts you can receive from the slot. So if you can't don't use any of these power plugs, then your card uses less than 75 watts of power. And then it's a very power efficient card, which hopefully we will see more of in the future, so our power bills will be better. So now this amazing ASUS card is good, and I can rotate and see if they still work. They do, and now I'm sure that they're attached, because I completely removed and then reattached them, because then I am sure. And it is safe to set your GPU like this when you store it. That's how I store them. I will now go out and I will blast it with air, I think, because it's dirty as fuck. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed it and you learned how to change thermal paste on a GPU. It is not that hard. Just remember, there's nothing called too much thermal paste. There's only too little. If you're not sure you put enough on, put some more on. Just put more on. It will not harm anything at all, I promise you.